Walking up to the mouth, you can almost feel a breath. It's moist inside, but cool. And while standing in the hot summer sun, the shade is so inviting. About to step in, you look up and around, eyes not quite adjusting to the darkness beyond the entrance, and barely make out the stalagmites and tights that make up the maw of the underworld creature. The water dripping off of the fangs looks like drool. It's hungry, begging to feast, and anyone who enters is its next meal. Standing back, an indigenous guide steps forward and calls for quiet so they can call upon the deities of the earth, the underworld, Xibalba in some language groups, and the cave itself as a liminal space connecting the two, for permission to enter the sacred space. Once the peace required is granted, you enter the maw, but it has become a cool, welcoming space again, where water blessings are given, beautiful flora, fauna, geology, and history can all be seen while shining a light onto the damp walls of naturally carved stone. Feeling the beauty and safety, you walk deeper into the cave. Just don't stray too far, or the jaws may close behind you. My name is Renee Whitehouse. You're listening to Detours in Archaeology, and this week, join me as we explore the caves of Río Bec and the Witz monster. So why did I begin with that story? Well, I thought it would put me in the mood, but also it was a bit of a fictionalized version of how I felt the first time walking into a cave in Mexico. We did get permission from an indigenous guide to go inside. It was part of an archaeological study abroad course. So we definitely wanted to follow all the customs that would have led us to be more accepted in this place. And what I'll be talking about is not just about caves. This one is more about how an architectural style can reflect the myths and the stories that we are told, that we live, how we feel. And the particular architectural style that I will be discussing is Río Bec. So why was the Río Bec style so important in the Maya area? First, we need to establish a context, a setting. Where and when did Río Bec style appear? To do this, we can look at the sites that fall within the Río Bec style. They are found in the southeast corner of the Campeche state, in the southern reaches of the Yucatan Peninsula, slightly north of the Guatemalan border. The Río Bec architecture style and other similar styles were developed from the 7th to the 12th century CE, or as archaeologists have classified them, the Classic Maya period, with occupation spanning from the Middle Pre-Classic to the Terminal Classic. This style is characterized by distinctive residential morphologies and building sequences, reflecting the region's unique social organization and dynamics. Unlike typical Maya centers, Río Bec lacked a central core with political monuments, making chronology crucial for understanding its development. A notable artistic feature is the prevalence of graffiti found on residences of all social ranks. These incised drawings, created both during occupation and post-abandonment, serve as a rare form of individual expression in Río Bec society. Occupational graffiti is often depicted with remarkable individuals, animals, or events, while post-abandonment graffiti featured specific themes like female imagery and mythic entities. Given the scarcity of glyphic inscriptions, these graffiti provide valuable insights into Río Bec's social dynamics and artistic practices, and provide insights into the personal and collective experiences of the inhabitants. While the Río Bec style developed locally, it's worth noting that earlier Mesoamerican civilizations, such as the Gulf Coast Olmec, played a significant role in establishing the first unified style and iconographic system in the region, shown through evidence of elemental analysis and exported ceramics. The Río Bec architectural style, prevalent in the Maya lowlands, flourished throughout the Classic period but eventually did decline. The decline of the Río Bec style may be attributed to changes in the regional growth patterns. While core centers like Tikal and Calakmul exhibited mature economic development, the Río Bec and neighboring Chenes regions showed signs of growth redistribution or decline, possibly due to truncated external ties following the collapse of southern centers. Recent findings at Sibanche suggest a connection between this dominant site and the spread of Río Bec architectural style to distant locations like Conlich, which in itself is not actually a Mayan name. It's named after the tree that grows the Cohun palm, potentially linked to the classic Khan dynasty, which is the dynasty of the snake. These factors can collectively contribute to understanding the end of the Río Bec style within the broader context of Maya civilization dynamics and the eternal conflicts between neighboring groups. Like its delightfully complex styled neighbors in the Chinese and Puc regions, the Río Bec architectural style was significant for its unique settlement patterns and monumental structures. Of course, as I said, the region lacked a typical Mayan political center, instead featuring dispersed residential complexes. A structure known as 5N2, a towered building, exemplifies Río Bec style's evolution from a simple residence to a grand palace, combining both private and public spaces. The style's importance is further emphasized by its association with its distinct burial practices. Plots would have been limited to a small portion of the population and focused on ancestor veneration rather than social hierarchy display. Two main patterns emerged: transitional burials and occupational burials, both reflecting that the significance of domestic space in Río Bec society and showcasing its enduring significance in Mesoamerican architecture, especially into the underworld. But what does it actually look like? Well, there are a ton of different architectural styles in the Maya area, but the three that overlap, or at least overlap the most, are Chinese, Puc, and Río Bec. They not only share borders with areas where multiple styles are popular, but they all contain elaborate stucco and stone architectural features that incorporate motifs of serpents and the Witz monster. The Río Bec architecture seems to invoke extremely opposite reactions from scholars. Michael Coe refers to the Río Bec towers as an aberrant architectural style, writes, "Here showiness rather than function is what was sought. For characteristics of this style of the late classic is the decoration of perfectly ordinary small palaces with high towers imitating the fronts of temple pyramids. These towers are solid, however, the steps being impossibly narrow and steep, and the doorway at the summit leading to nothing." As someone who has been up one of these towers, I can say that is pretty much correct. It is as though Río Bec architects wish to imitate the great Tikal temples without going to any trouble. To today's functionalists, the fakery of the Río Bec style is somewhat repellent, but no one could help but be awed at these mysterious sites crumbling in their jungle fastness. Paul Gendrop, in contrast, is more sympathetic to the shortened and simplified tune of these Río Bec buildings might seem like simple structures with no real purpose, more like oversized fancy houses. But looking closer, they stand out because of their important place in each site, their detailed and skillful construction, unique architectural style, consistent design features, and meaningful decorative symbols. It's also worth noting that these buildings were made during a time of great artistic creativity in the Mayan lowlands, same period when Tikal, after over 1,000 years of architectural growth, was building its grandest temples. In the pre-Hispanic Mesoamerican world, showing worship outdoors in public was extremely important. So, with a priest perched atop its pyramid base, the temple became harder for regular people to reach over time, and they just gathered around the base, watching ceremonies from below. While the sanctuary door above was a simple room, sometimes served like an echo chamber to amplify the priest's voice. Even at Tikal, as the pyramids grew taller, the temple's inside spaces got smaller. To hold the heavy roof cone, which is a staple of a lot of Mayan architecture, the Holy of Holies shrank to tiny sizes, like in Temple 5 at Tikal, as in the pyramid was huge, but the temple on the top was just one or two small rooms. This shows that for some big temple pyramids, like in Pei-10, just having the sanctuary's presence, both physical and symbolic, was enough, even if the inside spaces weren't useful. Eventually, this useless space was fully removed, as likely happened north of Pei-10 in the Río Bec region, where only the temple pyramids outside with its important symbolic parts was kept. It's not like normal people were going up anyway. They would have no idea that there was no room. Or maybe they would, and they didn't care. But what does that mean? Basically, the Río Bec style is characterized by the elaborate designs that also appear in Chenez and Puc styles, since they overlap on location. In fact, Chenez has regularly been classified as a middle ground between the Puc and the Río Bec styles, which works out because they're all built around the same time in the late Classic period, roughly 600 and 900 CE, and they border one another. But this style shows a unique amalgamation of artistic, structural, and functional elements that distinguish it from other Maya styles, shown in the extremely thin stairs, pseudo-temples, the roof combs on flanking towers, which are popular in other styles as well, arrangements of square in geometric motifs. Even though the Witz monster, its amna, was built out as a facade around the entrance to buildings, or just on a lot of the walls, is common in multiple, that's a story that didn't go out of style. At the core of the Río Bec architectural style are the distinct pyramid structures. While most pyramid buildings typically present a series of large stepped platforms connected by a main staircase that culminate in a temple or ceremonial structure at the apex, these examples in particular have false temple towers instead. The towers still reach really high in the air, creating an imposing verticality that conveys power and prestige. The other most elaborate structures often showcase elaborate stucco decorations and bas-reliefs that have both aesthetic and ritualistic functions within Mayan cosmology. The integration of terraces and stairways along the back and the sides of the temple pyramids connect various levels. This arrangement allows buildings to serve both ceremonial and residential purposes, highlighting a duality in function that is central to the architectural approach. These terraces often facilitate social gatherings and rituals, demonstrating a communal use of space in Mayan society. These decorative facades of the vertical towers also incorporate framed panels filled with intricate carvings. These carvings, including emblem glyphs, provide insights into the political organization and the governance of the region during its peak, demonstrating a complex socio-political structure. But what's different about the Puc region is that the lintels are generally covered with stucco, and the edges of buildings and facades in the middle have the Witz monster, also called the Earth monster, on them with the noses sticking out. These were actually the first Mayan buildings that I saw when I went there in 2013 at Kaaba. On the other hand, the Chenez and Río Bec have full doorway monster mouths and its Amna mask crowning upper friezes in the pseudo-temples, which contrasts to the plain lower walls. As a case study, I looked at the Chicana structure 1 and look at the Chicana structures in its Río Bec style. This unique architectural language flourished around the Río Bec River Basin, with about 40 known sites like Becán, Río Bec where it got its name, Xpujil, and Chicana itself, emerging in the mid to late Classic Maya area period, roughly 7 to 800 CE. Chicana Structure 1 is perched on the western edge of Group A, stands as a sole temple crafted in the distinctive Río Bec style within the site. Chicana Structure 1 embodies the pinnacle of both style and site significance. The temple's finely cut stone surfaces are adorned with intricate stucco work and rest atop a lower platform framed by 2 towers. Each of the 3 front-facing chambers possesses its own doorway surrounded by fading stucco impressions of Chak, the rain and storm god, hinting at the temple's sacred role. The flanking pyramid towers, with their very steep and very tiny staircases, are overlaid by striking stucco masks of Chak, heightening the importance, showing that the god was watching you. Above these towers sit what appears to be small temples. Though these are ornamental, as discussed earlier, devoid of inner chambers, marked only by niches or false doors. In essence, Chicana Structure 1 blends influences from the classic era pyramids with the later Chenez and Puch styles. While each architectural tradition symbolizes the sacred cave, the revered birthplace of creation, the Rio Bec style weaves those elements together in fusion, creating a visual narrative of a divine space and cultural connection, while not having to use as much material. The towering pyramids of Tikal. Classic Maya pyramids look like sacred mountains, made of layers that get smaller as they go up top with the temple. When there are 9 layers, they represent the soul's journey to the underworld called Xibalba. Linking the pyramid to Maya myths, these pyramids symbolize the earth itself, with pyramids on top representing sacred caves where the maize god, the first human, was ever born. The temple wasn't just a building, but a holy gateway where priests and rulers connected with ancestors, gods, and spirits. The pyramids and the temples on top were designed to look like entrances to the spirit world. They stood so tall above the jungle and acted as ancient observatories to track stars, the moon, and the sun. Often, they were built in pairs, in triads, or in larger groups. They lined up perfectly so light and views combined with certain events like the winter and summer solstices, blending nature and religion. The Chenez and Puch temple styles invoke the primordial cave not by sculpting mountains, but through intricate stone fretwork depicting the great cave monster seen in Chichana Structure No. 2. Chichana Structure 2 is one of the most remarkable Mayan temples discovered, dating between 750 and 770 CE during the early Shintok ceramic phase. Its standout feature is the elaborate monster math facade, showcasing the late classic Maya's artistic sophistication. The facade's intricate elements, teeth, fangs, spiraling plants, were individually carved blocks assembled like a mosaic, then covered with stucco, finely engraved, and vividly painted blood red, with some original paint still visible. Despite centuries of jungle damage, this unique construction allowed the temple's facade to be meticulously reconstructed. Today, Chichana Structure 2 remains preserved as it was over 1,000 years ago and is one of the few Mayan monster temples that is still fully visible. The structure may be depicting a reptilian monster with a wide open mouth, possibly inspired by reptiles like snakes and crocodiles consuming prey whole. Maya depicted the entrance to the underworld as a monster with a wide, gaping mouth. It is easily identifiable by its large eyes and sharp teeth framing the doorway. Jade earrings shaped like square hoops with pendants hang beside the eyes, while curling serpent heads emerge from the mouth's upper corners. The doorway itself forms an upside-down T with the teeth and a curved step representing the monster's mouth. Additionally, a second set of eyes flank the entrance, belonging to a profile view monster whose mouth overlaps with the frontal monster's. This dual perspective technique is common in Maya art. However, Chichana's monsters exhibit distinct differences. The profile monster has an S-shaped nostril, a long straight nose flare, a different serpent style with a flopped tongue, and a prominent curling brow with flames or plant-like shapes on top of its head. These features correspond with a long-lipped mask stacked beside the doorway, linking to imagery of a cohesive symbolic composition. Maya art used symbols, ideograms, and icons in their hieroglyphic writing to convey messages. One of the most notable in Chichana Structure 2 is the inverted Ik sign, the upside-down capital T shape created by the monster's open mouth around the doorway. Normally, the Ik sign, the regular T shape, symbolizes divine breath or wind, which is often used as a form for windows. Here, extending the monster mouth horizontally forms an inverted T, supposedly reversing its meaning to represent a lack of breath or life, so this doorway signifies death and the underworld. Just outside the monster mouth motifs, the facade features looping jungle vine symbolism, which represents the world tree emerging from the underworld to lift the sky and form the world. From the vines bloom 4 long-lipped masks symbolizing the 4 aspects of Chak, recognized in some regions as Bakan or Pawatun. These features supported the sky's 4 corners once the tree was fully grown. The Chaks were directly related to the sun and named the red Chak of the east, sunrise, black Chak of the west, sunset, white chalk of the north, hot summer sun, and yellow chalk of the south, cool sun of winter. The trunk of the world tree supported the center of the sky and the great god Itzamna. Chalk in a singular form was the god of rain and was believed to dwell in caves where he created water and thunder, so his looping lip and brow were symbols of the sacred mountain. Blood sacrifices had to be made to him in return for his gift of water, so the long flares that extended from the nose of the chalk mask and the profile monster probably represented stingray spines that indicate an association with sacrifice, which were used to draw blood through the tongue for women or the penis. The Witz monster has the Kawak glyph, the 6-circle triangle on its forehead symbolizing water droplets. Formerly called the Kawak monster, it's now named for the word feats found in its eye. Divine rulers often emerge from the jaws or stand on its head, signifying their divine reincarnation as the maize god. The Witz monster in Palenque's symbol of the foliated cross throws the triple perspective design, front and side profiles, and corn plants growing from a brow cleft, symbolizing the mountain crack where the maize god rose. The curled brows on the Chichana structure too likely link them to maize, agriculture, and possibly the Witz monster itself. The square-nosed beast appears in frescoes of Teotihuacan's Tepantitla compound as part of a priest's headdress during the seed-sowing rituals, symbolizing rain essential for crops. Priests would mimic this reptilian creature to invoke rainfall. This motif is shared by 3 major Mesoamerican cultures, the Maya, the Aztec, and the Teotihuacano, each linking the square-nosed beast to the sun's movement around the 4 sky corners, intertwined with the elements of fire, wind, and water. These elements were vital for their agricultural cycle of slash and burn methods timed with the seasonal rains. By tracking weather patterns alongside the sun's path, from its rebirth at the winter solstice in the southeast to its death in the night of the winter solstice in the southwest, these cultures tied the beast to the sun's annual journey and the environmental conditions sustaining their crops. The symbolism of the serpents that emerge from the upper and lower monster mouths of Chichana Structure 2 appear to be dualistic, with the upper monster mouth featuring serpents that relate to the yearly motion of the sun, while the lower monster mouth features serpents that relate to the daily passage across the sky and down into the underworld. With this in mind, likely, the monster mouth temple is also portraying a duality with front-facing monster and profile monsters being different aspects of a single beastly being, spirit, or god. Meanwhile, through the serpent imagery, Chichana Structure 2's association with the annual cycles of the sun and agriculture becomes almost irrefutable. The monster mouth facade of Chichana Structure 2 often overshadows the modest doorways on either side, which are integral to the building's purpose and story. The north chamber shows a carved thatched roof typical of Maya houses. The collapsed south doorway was likely the same. The Maya concept of the house, Na, symbolized ancestry, strength, security, structure, and community. Both humble homes and the god Itzamna were Na. In the Maya creation myth, Na is key, with 3 stones placed by gods to build a celestial hearth, the spiritual heart of the house. The first cosmic hearthstone site was Nahochan, or 5-sky house. This likely marked a measured spot in the sky for observing Venus, or the sun, serving as both a physical place and a time record. Similarly, Chichana Structure 2's houses, in quotes, were observation points. The classic Maya designed structures to align with light beams or star risings on calendar days. At Chichana Structure 2, sunlight likely illuminated the temples or rose behind them from specific spots, but this is now uncertain due to the roof's collapse. Chichana Structure 2 was likely also built for solar observation, as evidenced by both its carved facade symbolism and its architectural alignment. It features 3 east-facing chambers on a north-south platform, similar to the well-known E-groups at Tikal and Washington. These complexes consist of 3 structures on a raised platform aligned north-south, with a western structure from which the sunrise behind the 3 buildings could be tracked. The northern, central, and southern structures correspond to the summer solstice, equinox, and winter solstice sunrise positions, respectively. At Chichana, the large western platform between structures 1 and 2 may have served as a vantage point to observe celestial events involving the sunrise over Structure 2 and a sunset behind Structure 1. Chichana Structure 2 was designed to highlight Chichana's importance and the temple's purpose. The monster mouth doorway symbolized entry to the underworld. Passing through it meant entering the underworld to connect with ancestors, spirits, and gods via blood-burning rituals. Therefore, exiting Chichana Structure 2
symbolize rising from the underworld, a transformation reserved for the divine or reborn. Suggesting rituals here were culminated with rulers emerging from the monster's mouth in a reenactment of the maize god's rebirth from the sacred Witz. Though direct pictorial proof is lacking, frequent depictions of rulers appearing from the Witz monster's mouth in various locations support the ritual's importance, reflecting the Maya belief that the sun, a fiery beast, embodied the cyclical life of birth, death, and rebirth, governing the growth and decay of crops as it traveled across the sky. Deities govern the agricultural calendar, and Structure 2 was built as a ceremonial place for offerings and communication to ensure a successful harvest. Its alignment and triple-chambered design guided the people of Chichana in planting, harvesting, and burning crops, completing the agricultural cycle.
This motif, far from new, had decorated altars and stela since the early Classic period, evident in monuments like the zoomorphs of Chiricahua, especially zoomorph B, while Río Bec architecture occasionally includes the monster mouth doorways. Chichana's Structure 1 does not. Instead, it portrays the rain god Chak. All three styles flourished during the late Classic period with the pronounced emphasis on chalk, reflecting the urgent need for rainfall. Geological evidence reveals a prolonged drought preceding the 10th century collapse of the Classic Maya civilization, straining vital resources like manpower and timber, both essential for building vast pyramids and ornate structures. This environmental pressure likely drove a shift towards smaller, multifunctional buildings that provided grander symbolism and practicality, offering protection and paying tribute to the rain god all in one cohesive form. Structure 1 is a scaled-down twin pyramid model, featuring a proto-Chinese and Puke temple between its towers. These pyramid towers were not just symbolic, but likely served as, just like on the old temples of Tikal, served as observational markers aligned with solar events. Positioned on the west side of Group A, the setting sun would align with the towers on key days like solstices, creating solar effects known as hierophany, a sacred visual phenomena common in Mayan buildings and other ancient architectures. Observers could watch these events from various points in Group A, notably the monster mouth doorway of Structure 2, and low platforms around the plaza, indicating a deeply ingrained blend of architecture, astronomy, and ritual. Whether caused by resource depletion, religious change, or a ruler's whim, the shift to smaller, classic-era pyramid complexes remains uncertain. It's also unclear if Río Bec and Chicana Structure 1 evolved from classic pyramids to Chinese and Puke temples, and although we can never know for sure, cultural and stylistic shifts northward at the classic era's end suggest that Chicana Structure 1 and the Río Bec style marked a new approach valuing form and flair over size and cost. What stands out the most, to me at least, is that the Río Bec style differs in its use of false doors and niches on the facades. These elements carry symbolic meaning, often reflecting Maya beliefs about the passage between worlds. They frequently include sculpture depictions representing ancestral worship and divine interactions. The architectural style of Río Bec, characteristic of many Mesoamerican sites, features ball courts and platforms used for public performances. These architectural elements supported religious ceremonies and economic activities, highlighting the integral role architecture played in everyday life. The ballgame itself served as a narrative of creation, played in various ritual contexts, sometimes involving kings, armies, or prisoners, with outcomes potentially leading to sacrifice, sometimes not on the side of the players, but that usually doesn't happen with sacrifice of life. Speaking of sacrifice, as I mentioned earlier, burial practices were also deeply connected to the Río Bec style, where site layouts reveal a slightly different form of social hierarchy, and monumental architecture marks socio-political organization. The integration of burial sites within settlements reflects a nuanced understanding of life, death, and communal identity. Additionally, the spatial arrangement of these structures in relation to agricultural fields demonstrates how architecture responded to ecological conditions, fostering sustainable land use. This connection between built environments and agriculture illustrates an adaptive and harmonious relationship with the surrounding landscape. Understanding the Río Bec style requires appreciating its broader cultural significance, where structures transcend mere buildings to embody community identity and environmental responses. This is highlighted in how architectural styles in regions like Zipanche and Cojulich reveal intercultural exchanges, emphasizing the interconnectedness of Mayan architectural evolution. Similarly, Río Bec's distinctive features balance continuity with local innovation, illustrating dynamic cultural development within the Maya lowlands. But so, if the Witz monster is in a lot of different art styles, and a lot of art styles kind of intersect, why are we asking the question about Río Bec so specifically? Well, because it's one of the later ones, it wasn't around for as long, and they just had way more facades and pseudo-architecture that really didn't do much of anything except for being religious forms that you couldn't really go inside of. The question is, why did they connect something that was intrinsically real, at least in their myths, legends, and religion in general, to something that was fake? Well, let's look at the mythology. Rather than a single specific monster guarding all cave entrances in Mayan mythology, the concept is more nuanced, intertwining the sacred nature of caves as portals to Xibalba, and here's a breakdown of the key elements. For the Maya, caves and cenotes, which are natural sinkholes, were sacred as seen as physical doorways to the underworld, a realm inhabited by death gods and other supernatural beings. Xibalba was ruled by a pantheon of gods called the Lords of Xibalba, primarily Humkame, 1 death, and Vakumkame, 7 death, along with 10 additional lords who were often regarded as demons, inflicted suffering, illness, and death upon humanity. Mayan architecture at sites like Chicana featured elaborately carved doorways resembling gaping monster mouths, symbolizing the entrance to the underworld. These entrances were often adorned with monster mask facades. The Witz monster entities, sometimes depicted with cleft brows or emitting maize plants, represented the sacred mountains and acted as entrances to the underworld and the places of origin. The emergence of the maize god from a cleft mountain is a key analogy associated with the Witz monster. The Maya frequently utilized animal imagery to represent entities linked with the underworld. For instance, the gaping mouth of a reptilian monster, reminiscent of snakes and crocodiles consuming prey, served as a metaphor for the entrance to the underworld. A legend tells of Zukan, a giant winged serpent cursed to eternally guard the water cycle and the cenotes of the Yucatan Peninsula. And there are mischievous goblin-like beings that are believed to be guardians of nature, including caves and cenotes. Locals believe that it's important to respect Aluches to avoid their wrath. There are a few myths that incorporate the Witz monster, though it functions more as a setting than an actual character. For example, the hero twins and their father are part of one story. The father, a maize god, impregnates a woman either the normal way before or after he is already dead. This is the interesting way. It happens via his head either growing or just hanging like a fruit in a tree. She touches it and gets pregnant, and later gives birth to twins. After he had died in Xibalba following a journey through the cave entrance, his sons, the hero twins, later enter Xibalba to seek revenge and or justice on the Lords of Night, the rulers of the underworld that killed their father. They end up killing these lords upon winning the ball game. From this event, the world tree grows and splits the earth, which is also tied to the maize god. And this is what the kings are playing every time they played the ball game. It was a ritual reenactment of the creation of the world. In another myth, the lightning god Kawil enters the mountain, or Xibalba, to either rescue or bring out the maize for the people. This maize is often typically depicted as the baby maize god, to bring food to the earth. But the origin of people comes from the third attempt at creating humanity. The first two creations, made from wood and of stone, failed because they did not properly venerate the gods and were imperfect. On the third try, they decided to descend into Xibalba, brought maize out of the cave, and made people out of maize, allowing people to move around and actually honor the gods the way that they wanted. and that is why we live in the third age of people. The myth of the lightning god has a bit more context. The legend tells of a time where the precious maize was kept hidden and inaccessible, locked away beneath a heavy stone, likely within a sacred mountain cave. The early humans, in need of nourishment, sought to obtain this vital food source. However, the rock was very formidable and unmovable, preventing any access to the hidden maize. The chief of the deities, Kawil, the powerful lightning god, was called on for help. With his potent lightning, the god struck the mountain, splitting open the rock and thus released the maize for the benefit of humans. This act was also credited with scorching some of the corn, giving rise to the various colors of maize, so yellow, black, and red, which are seen to this day. Such revered contexts featured prominently in the religious architecture and iconography prevalent among Mesoamerican civilizations. For example, how the Teotihuacan cave may mark an important stage not only in the development of Mesoamerican mythology, but also that of the American Southwest, which was carried northward from the indigenous people like the Mixtec or the Nahuatl who left Mexico. This suggests that the myths stemming from cave systems shared local beliefs with broader cultural narratives across geographical regions, hinting at a shared mythological archetype among different indigenous cultures. The cave's status as an emblem of origin fundamentally linked to a narrative of coming forth from darkness to light, and resonates with mythical tales of creation that are central to many cultures all around the world. But the role of cave myths and monster lore in Mesoamerica presents an intersection of cultural, spiritual, and social narratives that resonate deeply within the mythology of numerous indigenous groups. In this context, narratives symbolize not merely geographical formations, but are imbued with cultural significance as sacred sites where the primordial myth happened. They serve as portals to other realms, often representing the underworld or spaces of emergence where cultural heroes or human ancestors originated. Caves are often viewed as entrances to the sacred earth and are closely associated with cosmological beliefs in Mesoamerican culture. This association places caves at the center of various mythologies, linking the physical structure of the earth to the metaphysical beliefs of the people inhabiting the region, as well as giving the living people, or more importantly, the royal leaders, a specific place to travel to and make a whole ritualistic show about praying to the gods to give them more food, shown symbolically in large carvings, the maize baby being presented by the king. In addition to their roles as sites of creation, caves in Mesoamerica were almost exclusively used as ritualistic spaces that materialize cosmology. These spaces were actively engaged with the community's spiritual life, serving as places for rituals important for social cohesion and collective identity. The proximity of ritual mounds to caves in sites such as Cayuco Mound Group in Belize illustrates the deliberate spatial organization employed by ancient Mesoamericans to bridge earthly rituals and the divine realm, especially as later in time, when the water really dried out, they would start making sacrifices of things and into caves and cenotes. But it wasn't just what was inside or what came out of the cave that mattered. The cave itself was anthropomorphized, at least in a way. It was still a monster, but it seemed to have agency in the myths, even though it basically always did exactly what the heroes needed. The cave, or rather the earth monster, was also called the Witz monster, which just means stone mountain, or the Kawak monster. And Kawak means lightning storm. The sky, lightning monster, and the ocean, earth monster, are the two primary agents of all creation in Mayan mythology. Together they created with their spoken words the first mountain, or as it was sometimes called, the stone mountain or sacred mountain, where all life on earth began. The complexity of cave rituals can also be interpreted through the lens of Mesoamerican iconography and mythology. Recent investigations have uncovered the existence of a man-made and modified caves in the highlands of Guatemala, linking these constructions to ritual importance and indicating their integral role in the ceremonial landscape. Such human-altered environments suggest an obvious intentional crafting of the natural landscape, further emphasizing how mythology and physicality intersect in Mesoamerican cultures. Through the analytical framework of the folklore and cryptid studies, we can consider the implications of cave monsters as reflections of social anxieties and cultural narratives. Of course, monsters have long fascinated scholars, and that they are embodiments of community fears and frustrations. The legend of cave monsters, especially when there are caves and cenotes everywhere, can be perceived as culturally relevant constructs that manifest in Mesoamerican folklore, echoing the collective subconscious of communities concerned with their environment and the dangers that lurk within the darkness. Moreover, the mythological context surrounding specific creatures can serve dual functions, both peril and protection. For example, the well-known tale of La Llorona serves as an architectural narrative within Latin folklore, reflecting deep societal values and historic traumas, while her presence across diverse cultural landscapes illustrates how myths can evolve and adapt, as her connections to a pre-Hispanic tradition indicating a historical depth that still resonates within community identity. The intersection between cave practices and narrative surrounding monsters forms a tapestry of cultural expression in Mesoamerica. Physical structures of caves frequently link to notable deities and rituals that underscore their sacredness. This is further corroborated by the artistic representations that are captured in murals and ceremonial architecture across notable South American sites. The study of caves and monsters informs modern interpretations of a cultural identity and memory. The historical legacy represented by these narratives links nostalgia and historic trauma, intertwining them with current socio-political discourses. As another example, modern interpretations of monsters contextualize fears surrounding loss of cultural identity and environmental degradation, as seen in contemporary works that channel ancient mythological insecurities into current dialogues about climate and conservation. Mesoamerican depictions of monsters potentially serve as guardians or harbingers of change, profoundly impacting social behaviors and values. The myth around monsters encapsulates the duality of fear and reverence associated with the unknown, which, in Mesoamerican context, often relates to the liminal spaces represented by caves. Caves not only act as thresholds to the underworld, but also as venues for the emergence of sacred and profane, where societal tensions reveal deeper truths about community aspirations and existential fears. The manifestation of monsters within caves is also examined through the anthropological lens, where the construction of these entities is both societal and relational. Monsters are defined as inherently social identities that possess a unique role in the collective psyche of a culture. This notion is salient in understanding how cave monsters serve as reflections of anxiety and a desire for control. The depths of Mesoamerican caves offer rich archaeological deposits that continuously contribute to our understanding of prehistoric communities. The study of coprolites in La Cueva de los Muertos, Chokchitos, reveal insights into the biology and cultural interactions of ancient populations, hinting at the health practices and dietary patterns. Such findings prompt a reconsideration of broader ecological narratives interwoven within the monsters and myths that expand knowledge of ancient life. But I think what's really important to remember is that these cave monsters aren't really monsters the way that Western Europeans or people in a modern culture might think of them. Sure, they can hurt you, but they are for sacredness, they are for ritualistic context. And really, they're just like deities that don't look human. And it really becomes clear that caves are not just physical structures, but complex symbols of life and death and transformation. And as I was saying before, this wasn't just in Mayan mythology, it was a shared pan-Mesoamerican mythology, and all the way up into the American Southwest, in cultural groups among the ancestral Puebloan and the Anasazi people. They and their modern descendants built sacred rooms in their communities known as kivas, where the entrance to the sipapu, the Puebloan place of origin, was marked in the center on the floor. But what does it all mean? So having a 3-point cave monster as a door entrance symbolically meant that anyone who entered is kind of intrinsically getting the blessing of the gods and even could be going to meet them. Otherwise, they might be eaten.
The Río Bec architectural style played a crucial role in the Maya region for both leaders and common people, reinforcing social cohesion and expressing power and identity through multiple dimensions. Monumental structures such as elaborately adorned pyramidal temples, with expansive plazas symbolize elite authority and technological skill, emphasizing verticality interpreted as an embodiment of divine kingship, linking power with sacred ceremonial complexes. Meanwhile, everyday architecture served practical social functions. Residential patterns reflected communal and private needs, fostering kinship and alliance systems, while co-residence models embody the interconnectedness of individuals within the social fabric of Maya microsocieties. The design of Río Bec structures, characterized by distinctive architectural elements such as niches and false doors, carried deep spiritual significance tied to ancestor worship and deities, aiding religious practices among commoners. These features often corresponded with burial customs, integrating the living aspects with concepts of life and death, thereby fostering connection and community identity through sacred sites. Architecturally, the religion reflects both private and public agricultural functions. The strategic placement and ornamentation of buildings demonstrate an organized resource management system and represent social hierarchies, revealing how Maya architecture in Río Bec mirrored agrarian practices and reinforced social structures. The construction techniques and styles of Río Bec architecture reflect regional interactions that played a key role in spreading cultural identities. This architectural style not only established local identity, but also connected Río Bec with nearby regions such as Zimbache and Cojulich, illustrating the fluid cultural boundaries influencing architectural and communal narratives. This exchange among settlements enabled the flow of ideas and resources, strengthening social cohesion among diverse Maya communities. The Río Bec style goes beyond aesthetics, serving as a cultural perspective through which Maya understood their world, leadership, and society. Its monumental structures shape public life, embodying social-political dynamics that empowered elites and symbolized collective identity. Both leaders and common people found meaning and function within the shared architectural environment. Thus, the Río Bec tradition highlights the complexity of Maya civilization, demonstrating how architecture was integral to community identity across social levels.
If it was so popular, why did it go away? Well, the decline of the Río Bec architectural style in the late Maya period is a multifaceted phenomenon resulting from a confluence of socio-environmental and economic factors, basically boiling down to the transition between the early and late classic periods, marking a significant rupture in the socio-political landscape of the Río Bec region. The era saw a decline and abandonment of specific dominant groups, particularly those aligned with the Payten style, influencing urban planning and architectural development. The shift towards more dispersed settlement patterns not only altered the landscape, but also suggested a change in community dynamics and government structures that impacted the choice to build in the traditional Río Bec style. But the society changes that influenced the start of the Río Bec style also went to its end. It has been observed by archaeologists that society changes influenced by broader trends in Maya civilization led to another reevaluation of architectural priorities. As central powers waned, the emphasis on monumental construction that characterized all these elite expressions also diminished. The decrease in functional and symbolic significance of grand structures resulted in a translation to less elaborate domestic architecture that better served the needs of smaller, more decentralized communities. This reflects a holistic adjustment within the society, as political systems and economic networks adapted under the changing circumstances. The socio-political organization of these communities also underwent significant change by the late Classic. Architectural features associated with hierarchical expressions, including the niche and false door designs, began losing their relevance as the power of leaders diminished. The governance system shifted from a divine kingship model to different forms of political organization, which didn't need the same monumental expressions. Consequently, the Río Bec style, which are deeply tied to these expressions of power, became less relevant. Environmental factors also impacted settlement patterns and architectural styles. The changing climatic conditions during this period, including fluctuations in rainfall and temperatures, likely influenced agricultural productivity. Such environmental changes may have led to food shortages and altering population dynamics, and prompted migration away from established settlers to even smaller groups. This migration brought about more adjustments in building practices. as it could have introduced different cultural influences or alternative building techniques that blended with the existing architectural vernacular instead of adhering to all the rigid forms that are characteristic of the Río Bec, Chanez, and Puc styles. The socio-economic interactions with neighboring regions fostered evolving cultural affinities that further diluted the architectural style's prominence. Long-distance interactions often led to a blending of styles and practices, increased trade and cultural connections with surrounding regions, prompted local communities to adopt and integrate new ideas, rather than to perpetuate the old style of construction. And as it was more difficult to get food, studies imply that a decline in population during the Terminal Classic affected the robustness of settlements. As populations shifted, whether due to internal factors or resource scarcity, there was a reduced capacity and fewer resources available for the construction of monumental architecture. Thus, decline in population likely correlated with a diminishing ability and desire to construct and maintain extensive architectural. So the end of the Río Bec style, the end of the use of the Río Bec style is not really attributed to one cause, but to a mix of different factors: sociopolitical, environmental, transformative, economic circumstances. But ultimately, the transition away reflects a broader narrative of adaptability and resilience among Maya societies in response to complex challenges that they faced. Each of these interconnected factors underscores the dynamic and fluid nature of Maya architecture and cultural evolution. But they never stopped looking at caves in a sacred way. Now, despite experiencing a decline towards the end of the Maya civilization, there is still a lasting cultural impact that is evident in both historical context and contemporary understanding. Its influences can be observed in various aspects of cultural identity, community organization, and cultural heritage, fostering a continuum from the ancient past to today's society. The decline of the Río Bec style and the shift towards alternative architectural expressions can be understood as part of a broader transformation experienced by Maya society. As sociopolitical structures evolved, there was a noticeable migration from the more complex and hierarchical architectural styles exemplified by the Río Bec to the simpler forms that served better the needs to decentralized communities that were more dispersed populations. In terms of contemporary implications, the legacy of Río Bec architecture is pertinent to both, of course, archaeological scholarship and cultural heritage discourse. The aesthetics and spatial organization of Río Bec structures serve as an important reference point for understanding Maya cultural identity. It's how architectural styles provide insight into social hierarchy and community dynamics, demonstrating their continued relevance in analyzing the relationship between architecture and society. The influence of Río Bec, Chanez, and Puc architecture extends to the realm of cultural memory and preservation efforts within modern Maya communities. Architectural plurality resonates with both contemporary concerns regarding cultural identity erosion, especially as globalization impacts building practices and local styles. While globalization poses challenges by diminishing the distinctiveness of traditional architecture, it can also bring new ideas and materials that foster innovation and diversity. The persistence of traditional motifs and architectural forms showcases resilience as communities strive to preserve cultural identity while embracing innovative techniques. More so, the concept of cultural heritage, as represented by the Río Bec style and other styles like it, influences modern architectural discourse. Scholars exploring global architectural movements often draw comparisons with traditional forms, investigating how modern constructions can incorporate local aesthetics while promoting sustainable practices that resonate with historical precedents. From a socio-cultural perspective, the architectural elements from these cultural regions provide insights into the collective memory and identity of modern Maya descendants. The symbolic aspects of these ancient structures, particularly their ceremonial spaces that reflect communal values, continue to shape the cultural practices of community gatherings. Agricultural features integrated within these settlements highlight the connection between the social and agricultural processes, signifying a continuity of lifestyle choices that can trace back to the classic Maya period. Therefore, the Río Bec, Chenes, and Puc architectural styles and its emphasis on the gods of water and maize and its connection to the Witz monster has not only characterized in a very important phase of Maya civilization, but continues to affect modern cultural expressions and community identities. Its influences permeate contemporary thought in various sectors, including archaeology, cultural heritage preservation, architectural innovation, and just art in general. Understanding these connections enhances appreciation of how past architectural styles can inform present cultural practices while shaping future developments within the realm of architecture and community living. Thank you so much for listening to Detours in Archaeology, Río Bec and the Witz monster. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe to the podcast, to my website. Leave a 5-star review, please, and leave a comment. I highly recommend going to the website and looking at all the pictures that go along with this article, all the artifacts, all the places. There are links in the description. There's also links to my Patreon, my Blue Sky account, my Instagram, where I have multiple different things coming up every week. And on my Patreon, I have bloopers on the drawing weeks. So I hope that you will enjoy it, as I mess up a lot during these recordings. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry for all of my pronunciation, names, and just words in general. If you know of any corrections, or you have more information, or any questions, feel free to email me directly at detoursinarchaeology@gmail.com, or you can contact me really anywhere. And I have some merch in my website store. I have a shirt that says, "Id est quod illa dixit." It means that's what she said in Latin. I also have stickers, just small random things. I am on the Archaeology Podcast Network, so if you are new and listening to this for the first time, welcome. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it if you've listened to all of my episodes already. All the music is from Scott Buckley and can be found at his website at scottbuckley.com.au. For the fun fact today, it's going to be less of just a fact and more of a little story. I was working in Arizona doing field survey, and at the end of one of the transects, I started smelling buttered popcorn. I put it in my notes just as an aside for me, but I forgot to take it out before I sent it to my boss as part of the daily log. He texted me back just personally and said that the buttered popcorn smell in the desert usually means that there are baby javelinas in the area. At least I felt like I wasn't crazy. But looking it up, horticultural societies say that the javelina smells like a skunk. That's probably might not be it. But there is another plant called the popcorn cassia, or Senna didymabotria. It is found in Africa, so I don't know if it's in Arizona, but it is found in hot sunny climates like in Arizona, so it could have been brought over. Fellow surveyor did not smell anything, so I don't know. Next time, Stargate SG-1, we're going to move on to Thor, one of the Asgard, and he is in a ton of episodes, and there is, of course, a lot of mythology about Thor. But until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep taking those detours. Thanks again.